mention free refreshment.
Next up is Great Longnose, and with a name like that, I don't blame him for looking so pissed off. Sunburn's senior Squidward here is based off of a Tengu, which are more or less demons. If that sounds familiar to you, that's because there's another monster based off of a Tengu, Reborn Tengu, who was quite popular in the Synchro era. He's a level 5, dark, beast warrior monster with 1900 attack and 1700 defense. Oh boy! With the stats of a level 4 monster, you already know this will not end well. Its effect is, if this card inflicts battle damage, your opponent skips their next battle phase. This guy was so freaking close to being good, if only his level was 1 lower. Being to stop your opponent from attacking you would be amazing in Spirits, and with an awesome attack of 1900, he'll be able to deal some good damage too. It's just crazy how 1 level can make a monster go from amazing to garbage. Don't let his name fool you, this guy is not great. Next up is a double feature, Kuro OB Karate Spirit and Yokozuna Sumo Spirit. Kuro OB looking like a rejected Ignite monster, and Yokozuna looking like a Hariyama's Mega Evolution. No cool mythological origins for these guys, just karate and sumo wrestling. Also, as you can plainly see, they are fucking pendulum spirit monsters. Level 5 wind warrior pendulum monsters with 2400 attack and 1000 defense to be precise, which technically makes them monarchs. Karate is scale 9 and sumo is scale 1. Both of them have the pendulum effect of being returned to the hand when a monster is pendulum summoned. Get it? Cause they're spirits. They both have the following effect. When this card is normal summoned, you can send to the graveyard all monsters, for sumo, / spells and traps, for karate, your opponent controls in the same column as the cards in your pendulum zones. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this card was normal summoned or flip face up this turn, return this card to the hand. You know what kind of support a deck filled with monsters that can't be special summon needed? 2 monsters that revolve around a mechanic that special summons. Even disregarding that, tributing a monster just to send 1 or possibly 2 cards to the graveyard is not a fair trade-off. And it doesn't even work if they are pendulum summoned either. Konami, you did so good with the Shinobird rituals for supporting spirits, and now you— oh, they are TCG exclusive cards. That explains a lot. Next is Fang Huang, which looks like Ho-Oh crossed with Hazy Flame Basiltris. And speaking of Basiltris, what's YuGiMation been up to lately? He hasn't done anything since that finale of that YuGiOh puppet show thing. Did he move on to greener pastures to becoming a professional animator or something? Or is he just working on a huge project? Because, believe me everyone,
Animation is so hard! People who do this for a living deserve more credit and respect!
And on the Pokemon side of things, it resembles Ho-Oh because they are both based off of Fang Huang, which are phoenix-like birds of Chinese mythology who rule over all other birds. It's a level 6, fire, winged beast monster with 2100 attack and 1800 defense. If that sounds like a Fire King monster in the making, well, it kind of is. Its effect is, when this card is normal summoned or flip face up, destroy all set spell and trap cards your opponent controls. This effect isn't terrible, but it's not amazeballs either. On one hand, it doesn't hit your back row, but on the other hand, it only hits set cards, which your opponent can just flip face up to protect them from being destroyed. If it hit all face up spell and trap cards, I feel it would be a little better, but I still wouldn't run it either way, honestly. Next up is Izanagi, who is the only non-spirit monster to support spirits. Also, he looks like an albino Madara Uchiha, which is probably why he is scowling like that. Izanagi, as previously mentioned, is the husband of Izanami, and together they popped out babies of various deities like Tsukuyomi, Susanoo, and Amaterasu. He also used that staff of his to carve the land masses via erosion. He is a level 6, and just like his wife, he has a weird attribute, that being wind. Fairy monster, with 2200 attack and 1000 defense. Not quite Monarch material. His effect is, you can special summon this card from your hand by removing from play 1 spirit monster from your hand. Spirit monsters you control do not have to have their effects that return them to the hand activated. Also, as previously mentioned, he does not return to the hand because he is not a spirit. He can also prevent spirits from doing the same. His usefulness depends on the kind of spirits you use in your deck, but the thing is, most of the better spirits do not like sticking around. He might have more use in a dedicated Shinobird deck though. I wouldn't know, considering all the non-ritual Shinobirds are complete ass. If nothing else, you can make a rank 6 with him in the next monster. Next is Yamato no Kami, who looks absolutely ripped and terrifying. It's like he injected himself with steroids laced with the DNA of Yamata Dragon. Seriously, what the fuck are those things sticking out of his back? His name means God of Yamato, of which is the ancient name for Japan, so he's literally God of Japan. Also, despite his name calling back to Fushi no Tori, this guy is actually pretty good, as well as being very unique. He's a level 6, dark, warrior monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense. His full effect is, this card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card cannot be special summoned except by removing from play one spirit monster from your graveyard. This card returns to its owner's hand during the end phase of the turn and is special summoned. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. That's right, he's literally the opposite of all the ordinary spirits. His actual effect isn't anything to write home about, but getting some use of the spirits in your graveyard and quickly bringing out a little muscle means he's one of the better high level ones. Next up is a spirit who has found its place in a number of Monarch decks over the years. Dark Dust Spirit. Scary, ain't he? He's got all his skin flayed off, glowing yellow eyes, covered in spikes, and has large claws to top it all off. He's based on the Shinigami, which is essentially the Japanese equivalent of the Grim Reaper, and featured in just about every fantasy anime in the book. He's a level 6, Earth, zombie monster with 2200 attack and 1800 defense. His effect is, when this card is normal summoned or flip face up, destroy all other face up monsters on the field. Yeah, so he's pretty much a dark hole on legs. It's no wonder why Monarch decks use this guy, since both Monarchs and Spirits aren't exactly known for filling up the field. 2200 attack is the bare minimum of acceptable for a tribute monster, but with an effect that will probably open your opponent up for a direct attack, who needs to kill shit by battle. Unfortunately, power creep really hit this guy's usefulness, what with monsters loving to be destroyed and in the graveyard and all that. Although nowadays, with that being scaled back a little, Darkest Spirit has become a little better. Basically, he's one of those cards whose usefulness depends on the format. Next up is the first of the two OG boss spirits, Yamata Dragon. Looks fucking awesome, doesn't he? Don't know what's up with all those weird veins on it though. It's based off of my favorite mythical creature of all time, the Yamata no Orochi, or just the Orochi for short. Sorry, wrong Orochi. The Orochi was a gigantic snake dragon monster with 8 heads, which was slain by Susanoo, aka Susa the Soldier up there. It's also Medi-Summon. Yamata Dragon is a level 7 fire dragon monster with 2600 attack and a whopping 3100 defense, which is the highest of all spirit monsters. You'd expect their stats to be flipped, honestly. I mean, the Orochi wasn't exactly known for its resilience. Its effect is, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. Damn, that's some freaking awesome draw power, huh? Unfortunately, in a spirit deck, that's only going to net you maybe 1 or 2 cards, since you're going to have a handful of spirits anyway. Even disregarding that, the possibility to draw through tributing 2 monsters is more trouble than it's worth. It's a damn shame that my favorite mythical creature goes to waste like that. At least there's still Evil Dragon Ananda. The other original spirit boss monster is Hino Kagutsuchi, and I really don't like the look of that grin. He's based off of the god of fire, just known as Kagutsuchi. Izanami died giving birth to him because of his fire, and this pissed Izanagi off. Daddy cut off Kagu's head, cut his body into 8 pieces, and scattered them throughout the land, which became volcanoes because lava equals fire, even though it's just molten earth. He's a level 8 fire pyro monster with 2800 attack and 2900 defense. Okay, seriously, what is up with these boss spirits having higher defense than attack? Your opponent isn't going to attack into a set monster you tributed 2 monsters for. We haven't gotten to that part yet. His effect is, if this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, they discard all cards in their hand during the next draw phase, before they draw. Wow, so he forces your opponent into top decking right off the bat like that. Of course this was better back in the day when cards didn't like being in the graveyard, but dumping your opponent's entire freaking hand is not something to sneeze at. Still, just like Yamata Dragon, it's not a good enough payoff for 2 tributes. He's definitely the better of the 2 though. Next up is Amaterasu. Yep, in 2016 we finally got Amy as a spirit monster. Sweet raw, that artwork is just drop dead gorge. She's dressed like a queen, she has a serene expression, there are sunbeams coming off of her crown, and she has a fucking sword too. Like, seriously, one of my freaking favorite artworks in the game. Amaterasu is the goddess of the sun, and probably best known by people in the West for taking the form of a white wolf in a certain underappreciated video game. Amy is a level 9, light, fairy monster with a big 3000 in attack and defense. Unlike the previous two spirit boss monsters, that defense value is justified, as you'll soon see. Also, since she's the first spirit to have a complex effect, I'm gonna clunkily break up the flow by riffing on each individual aspect of it. Her full effect is, cannot be normal or special summoned. I know what you're thinking. Wait, if it can't be normal or special summoned, how the fuck do I summon this thing? You gotta set her. Yep. I believe Amy is the one and only monster so far that must be set. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets this face-down monster, you can change this card to face-up defense position. Draw one card. Okay, that's pretty cool. She actually has some weird protection effect. That's a good thing, considering your opponent is probably going to want to do something about a set monster you attributed 2 monsters for rather than attacking it. It even nets you a card in the process. If this card is flipped face up, banish all other cards on the field. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was flipped face up this turn, return it to the hand. Damn, that's a brutal effect, just completely takes everything else out of the game. Unfortunately, Amy is not easy to summon, and not just because she requires 2 tributes. The thing is, unlike with Yamata Dragon and Hino Kagutsuchi, who can have help with Nikitama to be brought out, the same thing does not work for Amy. Nikitama only lets you normal summon spirits, not set spirits. On top of that, she has to, well, as someone put it, sleep for a turn before she can do anything, unless you rely on your opponent targeting her instead of using Dark Hole or something. So Amy isn't necessarily a bad card, just an impractical one. It's a damn shame, because again, I freaking adore her artwork. But good artwork doesn't always correlate to a good card. Ain't that right, Blizzard Warrior and Mechanical Arcfiend? With the normal spirits out of the way, time to move on to the Shino Birds. The Shino Birds are all wind, winged beasts, spirit monsters based off of a Japanese festival called Tanabata, which is a celebration of the love story of the deities Orihime and Hikobushi. When I Google their names, I get the Bleach character and then some dude from this mobile game called Ayakashi Ghost Guild, which I guess was made by Zynga, aka the Farmville people. Anyway, the story goes that Orihime and Hikobushi were in love, but the river of the Milky Way galaxy came and separated the two like a disapproving father. Now Orihime and Hikobushi can only get together on the 7th day of the 7th lunar month. On that day, a bridge of birds forms to reunite them once more, because birds are just the epitome of stable construction. So, why the hell don't they just run away together on one side of the galaxy? Anyway, that is why the Shino Birds are, well, birds. Shino Baron and Shino Baroness Peacock are based on Hikobushi and Orihime, while the other Shino Birds are just lowly avians with no mythological resemblance. Now let's get down to business. I figured we would begin with the least terrible of the 3 normal Shino Birds, Shinobird Crane. And I don't know what you think you're gonna do with that massive bow and arrow considering your attack score, but at least you're dressed magnificently. He is a level 4 with 1500 attack and defense, so clearly these guys aren't focusing on raw numbers here. His effect is, once per turn, if another spirit monster is normal or special summoned while this monster is on the field, you can draw 1 card. So, it's literally a worse version of Nikitama. Hey, never said the least terrible Shinobird was a good Shinobird. Yes, he can net you some draws if you keep him on the field with the effect of the rituals, which we'll get to, but again, you're just having this average Joe sit there while you draw maybe once before he flies the coop. You don't get an extra normal summon or anything else out of him being around like you do with Nikitama. Well, I hope you enjoyed Crane, because it's all downhill from here. Second is Shinobird Crow, aka Blackwing Crow the Reject. Those cute peacock feathers on your dagger really clash with your aesthetic, buddy. You should do something about that. He's a level 4 with a whopping 0 attack and defense. Okay, so maybe he's a reject Raid Raptor then, because fuck stats correlating with level so long as it lets you spam out the boss monsters faster. Ain't that right, Fuzzy Lanius? Look about as fuzzy as a sheet of sandpaper. Crow's effect is, once per turn during either player's damage step, when this card battles an opponent's monster, you can discard one spirit monster. Until the end of the battle phase, this card gains attack and defense equal to the attack and defense of the discarded monster. Wow, so he's actually a shitty reverse honest. I've mentioned a few times previously that spirits aren't well known for their high attack values, and since almost every non-ritual tribute spirit monster is impractical, you might as well just, summon that Yakusho or Amano Iwado. Yes, it sets up the graveyard for the ritual spell, which, again, we'll get to soon, but so does fucking Darkness Approaches. And don't let that text fool ya, that's pre-errata, because Konami doesn't want face-down Link monsters. Sorry, Slate Warrior. By the way, check out those nips. Last, and definitely least, is Shinobird Pigeon. Oh my god, this guy even looks like a dorky loser. He's like the fursona of number 2 from Codename Kids Next Door. He's a level 4 with 1000 attack and 1800 defense. Wow, so with that pen and paper of his, he's actually stronger than Crow. Guess the pen is mightier than the sword. Alright, you guys ready for his effect? You're gonna get a kick out of it. His effect is, once per turn you can target one other spirit monster on the field. Return it to the fucking hand. Are you kidding me? What the fuck is the point of this? You're literally just using field presence and speeding up something that's inevitable anyway. This is the equivalent of Test Tiger just shuffled a Gladiator Beast into the deck and called it a day. In fact, this guy worked like Test Tiger and let you summon another spirit afterwards. That would at least be something. I mean, he would still be pretty bad, since that spirit would already have to be out on the field to do that, and spirits, again, do not swarm the field. The only application I can see for this guy is sending the rituals back early so you can get the tokens they leave behind if you wanted to link summon Greatfly or something in fucking spirits for some stupid reason. But even that is so fucking situational and pointless that I honestly believe Pigeon is the worst spirit monster. Yes, even worse than Otohime, Great Longnose, and Fushinotori. Because while those guys may be terrible, they at least net you results on their own. Let's end things on a high note with the only good Shinobird monsters, and arguably the best spirit monsters barring Nikitama and Aratama. It's another spirit double feature with Shino Baron Peacock and Shino Baroness Peacock. Don't they look just darling in those blue peacock kimonos? Baron looks like he's about ready to cut a bitch, and Baroness looks like she's about to go cross-eyed. They are both level 8, Shino Baron has 3000 attack and 2500 defense, and Baroness has 2500 attack and 3000 defense. Cause, guys are stronger than girls or something. Their full effects are, you can ritual summon this card with Shinobird's Calling. Must be ritual summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. Let's look at Shinobird's Calling. There's Crane using all of his, Crow's, and Pigeon stuff as an offering because he knows that they are all complete bird shit. Its effect is, this card is used to ritual summon Shino Baroness Peacock or Shino Baron Peacock. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field and or banish spirit monsters from your graveyard whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. Okay, I don't know why they are vague about the level part since they are both level 8, but the banish from the graveyard part is really good since it gives the spirits in your grave actual use. Not much else to say about it, other than being a solid method of ritual summoning. I just wish it had a graveyard effect itself, like being able to search for another copy of itself somehow by banishing itself and discarding a spirit or something. Anyway, back to the peacocks. If this card is ritual summoned, you can return up to 3 monsters your opponent controls to the hand, for Baron, / you can shuffle up to 3 spell or traps your opponent controls into the deck, for Baroness. That is some great removal. Especially Barons. Keep in mind this does not target, because there is no cost to this effect, just the condition that it has to be ritual summoned. Baroness is not quite as useful as her husband is, and you mainly want to save it for when your opponent has a bunch of annoying floodgates out or something. And that's just the beginning of their effects. Then you can special summon 1 level 4 lower spirit monster from your hand, for Baron, / from your deck, for Baroness, ignoring its summoning conditions. Hey, karate, sumo, take notes. This is how you special summon spirits properly. This is part of the effect I was talking about with Shinobird Crane. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, a mono Iwata is going to be your target. Baroness has the edge over Baron with this one, since your deck is a much larger resource than your hand, even for spirits. Also, it's very important to know that since spirits only return to their hand when they are normal summoned or flip face up, this right here will bind them to this earthly plane. That is why you usually want to go for the big dumb Squidward's house cave thing. Man, can you imagine how great it would be without that level restriction though? A permanent Hinokagutsuchi or Yamata dragon without having to go through the hassle of actually summoning them would be fantastic. Oh, and we're still not done yet. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card was special summoned this turn, return it to the hand. And if you do, special summon 2 Shinobird tokens. Wing Beast type, Wind, level 4, attack 1500, defense 1500. Okay, so the last effect isn't nearly as impressive as the first 2, but it's a cute little parting gift and provides some field presence. And if they somehow stick around, you got yourself some tribute or even ritual fodder. So now that we're finally done with the monsters, let's move on to the support. And what better way to start out the support than with anti-support? Fangsheng Mirror. Fangsheng is a style of Chinese music, and that's all I can find out about this name. If you look closely, there's a monster in the mirror. However, it does not warrant for singing wubba 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 woo woo woo, cause as with most anti-support, this card is way too situational. It's a normal spell and its effect is, look at your opponent's hand, select and discard 1 spirit monster to the graveyard if a spirit monster exists in their hand. Oh my god, you guys, it's Mind Crush except faster and without any drawbacks. Alright, let's move on to some actual support. The first actual piece of support is Shinobird Power Spot. Reminds me of a Sanding Zone from Skyrim. It's a continuous spell and its effect is, spirit monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. If a face-up wind monsters you control returns to the hand, except during the damage step, you can add 1 spirit monster or ritual spell card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Shinobird Power Spot once per turn. The stat boost is nice, since as I've been saying, spirits aren't incredibly strong. The effect to search for a spirit or any ritual spell is amazing, but there's a big problem with that. The only non-ritual wind spirits are the Shino Birds, which you shouldn't run, the Pendulums, which you really shouldn't run, and Yatagarasu, which you really shouldn't run. So that puts a huge hit to its usability. I guess you could use it in some sort of Yosenju Shinobird hybrid deck, but good luck with that one. The next card is Ghostly Power Controlling Mechanism, aka Spiritual Energy Settle Machine, which I swear looks like the sprite ripped off the background of a Sega Genesis game. Also, is it just me or does that spiritual energy that the machine is settling look like a jagged-toothed monster face with nostrils? It's a continuous spell and its effect is, as long as this card remains face-up on the field, all spirit monsters remain face-up on the field and do not return to their owner's hands during the end phase, even if they are normal summoned or flip face-up. I don't know why that last part is in there, considering at the time of this card's release, that was literally the only way spirits could be summoned. And if you thought it was just a shitty mandatory version of Izanagi, we aren't done with it yet. Discard 1 card from your hand to the graveyard during each of your end phases. If you do not, destroy this card. Okay, not that this maintenance cost is hard to pull off in spirits or anything, but why is there even a maintenance cost to begin with? You're playing with the original spirit cards, whose even in the slow format as 2004, they weren't worth all this trouble to make a dedicated deck for. When this card is removed from the field, all face-up spirit monsters return to the owner's hands. Oh, and there's the cherry on top. Your spirits don't even get to stay bound to this earthly plane afterwards. You could have been the Shino Baron and Shino Baroness Peacocks we had over 10 years before their inception, back when rituals were just a bunch of normie monsters. It's worth pointing out that this card is so fucking bad that the wiki has it categorized as both support and anti-support. Next is Mirror of Yata, which is one of the 3 Imperial Relic cards. It's based on the Yata no Kagami, which means the 8-hand mirror. And in Japan, mirrors are a representation of a person's true self. It's an equip spell, and its effect is equip only to a spirit monster. The equipped monster does not have to have its effect that returns it to the hand activated. If it would be destroyed by battle, destroy this card instead. Okay, the battle protection effect is cute, but I'd argue this card is even more ridiculous than Spectral Ability Manipulation Contraption. Why? Because it debuted in the exact same set as Izanagi did. So why the hell would I want to use a vulnerable card that only works for a single spirit over a card that affects them all without restricting their freedom? Next up is the Sword of Kusangi, and if it looks familiar, that's because it's Susa Soldier's sword, andAmi's as well. It's the second Imperial Relic card, and it's based off of the Kusangi no Tsurugi, which means grass-cutting sword, because lawnmowers just aren't as cool, I guess. It's a representation of virtue and valor. It's an equip spell, and its effect is equip only to a spirit monster. During battle, when it attacks a defense position monster whose defense is lower than the attack of the equipped monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. When the equipped monster you control is returned to the hand and this card is sent to the graveyard, return this card to your hand. So it lets the spirit monster do pierce damage and it comes back to the hand right with it. That's some nice recycling and all, but spirits aren't a battle-focused deck. And again, don't have high attack values. You can inflict a lot of damage with it using a Sura Priest against a Gusto deck, I guess. Next is Orb of Yasaka, which is the third Imperial Relic card and the thing that Yatagarasu is perched on. It's based on the Yasaka ni no Magatama and represents benevolence. I don't know what it stands for, but that don't look anything like an orb. Presumably because Konami knew Lima Bean of Yasaka wouldn't be as catchy. It's an equip spell and its effect is equip only to a spirit monster. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, gain life points equal to that monster's original attack. When the equipped monster you control is returned to the hand and this card is sent to the graveyard, return this card to your hand. So it's just like Kusangi, except it turns the spirit into Guardian Angel Joan instead of letting it do pierce damage. This one is definitely the better of the two, especially since you'll be taking quite a few hits playing a spirit deck. However, even though I'm a sucker for cards that give you life points, it suffers the same problems as the previous card. That being that spirits aren't a battle-focused deck and don't have huge attack values. Next is Legacy of Yatagarasu, which is not one of Rada's series about reviewing and riffing broken archetypes. It's the first spirit trap card. Also, Ihara, what are you doing? The Orb of Yasaka is not food. It's a normal trap and its effect is activate one of these effects. Draw one card. Activate only if your opponent controls a face-up spirit monster. Draw 2 cards. Okay, while that's technically anti-spirit support, creature swap in Hebo means that spirit decks can take full advantage of it. I mean, it's not like you're gonna run this in the off chance you find yourself going up against a spirit deck. Either way, this sort of draw power is much too slow. And the cute combo potential is still a bit too situational in that you might as well use Jar of Greed. Which you also shouldn't do. Also, in some of the video games, this is called Corpse of Yatagarasu. Even though spirits themselves can't leave corpses, and Yata is shown to be quite alive in the artwork. Next up is Shinobird Salvation, and damn, that's some real nice artwork. It's also the only good spirit support card. It's a continuous trap and its effect is, if a face-up spirit monster you control returns to your hand while this card is face-up on the field, except during damage step, you can target one card your opponent controls. Destroy it. Alright, being able to pop an enemy card when your spirits come back is a cute effect, and targeting destruction removal still has its merits now and then. That's not the main draw of this card though. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish one spirit monster from your graveyard, negate the attack, then end the battle phase. You can only use each effect of Shinobird Salvation once per turn. Boom! It's a spammable battle phaser for spirits. That is a godsend for a deck like this, and gives spirits in the graveyard a good use. Just make sure you keep some in there to summon peacocks. I do kinda wish this card was a continuous spell though. I mean, I get the idea that it's a battle trap first, and you're gonna want to spring this on your opponent when they go after you, but sometimes there's a floodgate or something up that you just want to get rid of right quick. All in all, it's a really good card, although it's not everyone's cup of tea. Last and least is Spirit's Invitation, and going by that artwork, it is not a gathering I would want to go to. Seriously, who is that dude going all Ghostbusters on that monster? He just opened up a portal to the spirit world and is forcing that ghost to pass on to the afterlife whether he wants to or not. Anyway, it's a continuous trap and its effect is, each time your spirit monster returns to your hand, select one monster your opponent's side of the field and return it to its owner's hand. Pay 500 life points during each of your standby phases. If you do not, this card is destroyed. Wow, so why is this thing a trap card, not a spell? You're generally not going to set your spirit monsters, so they'll be returned to your hand during your end phase. So this thing has no benefit of being sprung on your opponent. It's just made slow for the sake of being slow. And what's with this maintenance cost bullshit again? It's not as bad as Phantom Life Force tweaking gizmo, sure, but it's unnecessary. I will say that it's pretty amusing that the bounce effect of this card is better than that of Resetsu and Hebo, even though this card came out in 2004. Well, at least in the TCG that's the case, because in the OCG your opponent chooses which of their monsters gets returned to the hand. Why? Why would my opponent have control over who and who doesn't get to be sent back with my own card? That's such a shitty stipulation is probably why it was changed in the TCG, which is nice, but that just causes ruling complication and it makes me wonder if there are other TCG card effects that are blatantly the opposite of their OCG version. What I'm saying is if you receive this invitation, just hit no. Not maybe, but no. Don't be a passive-aggressive douche who is too much of a pussy to not be assertive and tell those spirits that the amount of fucks you give about this thing they are inviting you to is lower than the graves that their corpses are buried in. That, everyone, has been episode 1 of Vex Views Decks. I hope you enjoyed this first attempt at this little series of mine. Until next time, try to enjoy life and keep in high spirits.